welcome to the Marita Minutes. Today, I want to talk about Lindsie Chrisley. Now, if you don't know who I'm talking about, this is Todd Chrisley's daughter, Julie Chrisley's granddaughter. Now, Todd and Julie Chrisley, um, staple in reality TV world. They just got pardoned a few months ago from the current administration. They had done 28 months in jail and for wire fraud, bank fraud, and tax evasion. Okay. Lindsie Chrisley was one of the people that had testified against them, kind of putting the nail in their, I won't say coffin because they're not dead, but their jail cell, maybe the key lock. I don't know. I don't know how to make that analogy. But anywho, she was part of the reason why they went to jail because her testimony was not in their favor. Chase, her brother, they share Todd Chrisley as their father, basically came out in a podcast and basically said he loves his siblings, her and her brother. Can't remember what her brother's name is, but that he doesn't want to talk to them anymore because of what had gone down, how things transpired. He loves them as his siblings, but with God's help, he has forgave them, but he will not forget. And if he doesn't talk to them anymore in life, it'll be too soon. I'm paraphrasing. He didn't say that, but basically he just said he doesn't want anything to do with them anymore. However, she's come out and said that she is changing her name. She is dropping the Chrisley name and she's going to Landsman, I want to say. Yeah. Changing her last name. She just changed it on Instagram from Chrisley to Landsman. Okay. So let me read this US Weekly thing. So Lindsie Chrisley stunned fans with a name change on her social media page, but her family is not shocked. There hasn't been a real relationship in a long time, so the name change isn't surprising. The timing just feels more calculated than heartfelt. A lot of pain has been caused over the years, and the space between them has brought a sense of peace that family had not felt in a long time. This only confirms that distance is the healthiest. If this helps her feel more in control or seen, that is her decision, and the family has made peace with the way things are.
Okay. So I would say, I don't even know how long it's been, but over the last week, a lot of people, and by a lot of people, more people than I ever even imagined, um, noticed that what I thought was quietly changing my last name on Instagram from Chrisley to Landsman was like a quiet movement for me. I did know when people eventually saw it that it would raise questions, but how quickly people saw it was not something that I was necessarily prepared for. My hope was that I did that, and then by the time that I recorded for the show next, like nobody would have seen it.
Okay.
And I guess because I thought if it's on your profile, if people are only like viewing your story, they're not necessarily seeing that. Or if they're just like viewing your posts, they're not necessarily seeing that because that's not like your username.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know that people would see it that fast, but I did want to publicly address that and just take a moment to directly speak to the people who listen to me every single week, the people who are on my online communities, of why I made that choice. And Kristen, I mean, you can freely speak however you want to on this because you know all the ins and outs of the situation. For a long time, I very much battled with carrying my maiden last name. And with me carrying that last name came public association, assumptions of all different kinds, weight that I truly feel like I never asked for. And I do think it's fair to say that, contrary to what some people believe, the Chrisley last name, while it did start with Chrisley Knows Best, and we all collectively were doing that project together, outside of that, that last name did not create income or opportunity for me. In fact, it became very problematic with me being associated in any capacity, in business, and has been problematic for projects that I have done post Chrisley Knows Best, and have been asked to go by another name altogether.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to just seeing inner, business dealings come in, and there's perks and privileges to a lot of things in life, right? So,
I don't know if I don't know what her experiences has been, but it doesn't seem like that would be true in the sense that the Chrisleys have just gotten out of the clinker a couple of months ago, and they are on their return back to the TV screen. Um, the, if anyone would be um plagued by the Chrisley name, it would be them. Now, I'm not saying that everybody is going to open their arms to them again because they disappointed a lot of people. Don't get me wrong, they disappointed me too. I was really like on the floor when I heard about what happened. But at the same token, I mean, am I giving them a pass? Probably. Should I? Probably not. But I like Todd and Julie. I like that whole family unit that they portrayed on TV. Now, were they faking it? Probably some of it. Their wealth. Yeah, we know. We get it. I don't condone that. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that they're not running into any brick walls coming out here again. They are back on their podcast on YouTube, which you don't need to go through anybody, but they're working on getting back on the air. And for what I understand, they're going to be back on the air again. Now, whether it's called Chrisley Knows Best again, I don't know. They're probably going to change the name because he don't know best. But they're already in projects. I just read an article where someone is talking about Julie Chrisley being on Dancing with the Stars. This is opening up other doors for them. So how she's running into any um issues or brick walls because of her last name, maybe it's the type of business you're trying to. I don't know if I believe that, but I honestly feel like it's not because of that. It's because the family has disowned her. They don't have no words for her. At least Chase doesn't. He said that out of his mouth. Now I don't know how Savannah doesn't say anything. She's quiet. She didn't say anything, but I don't know what all that is. Todd, I can see him being like Chase because he can hold a grudge. Even though that's his daughter, I'm sure he loves her with the love of Jesus. But I can see him not dealing with it. Julie, I don't know. She seems like a sweetheart, but again, the stuff that went down for them to go to jail and her part that she played in it, talking about Lindsie, is probably not going to be well received by the family, at least not no time soon. I'm not saying they're never going to come back together, but for right now, I don't know. Let's keep listening.
while you became known in a space that you started on,
Mhm.
when the name became associated with what it became associated with, you lost a lot. You lost a lot of business deals. You lost a lot of just in general because of everything that transpired, and the he said, she said, or the she said, and all of those things that were going on publicly. It did not fare you well in business.
Mm-hmm. And I think that that's where, I don't know if it's fair to say, people, viewers, listeners, opposing parties have that all misconstrued. I don't know how that could be misconstrued. I don't know.
I think that there's a large number of people that love the Chrisley family, right? Like absolutely love them. Certain narratives and things that were being spewed at certain times with whatever the dynamics were that were going on, also led to having conflict, like with that name for you. But I think people just assume that because of what they saw on the show, that that last name was associated with a lot of privilege. And I'm not saying that it was not at one time, but that privilege did not necessarily extend all of the time to every single one of you.
Well, and that privilege, for what it's worth, I was married all the way up until I left the show. And so my name was reflective of a Campbell up until that point. And
Girl, nobody knew your name was Campbell. Where we did know that you were married, I think. It also was brought on the show that you and your husband kind of split. Did we ever see the husband on the show? I don't think we did because I don't think Todd liked him ever. So, if anything, and this is my opinion, I don't know. If she got or ran into issues because of her last name, is because of how she did her parents. That's what I'm thinking. Had nothing to do with the last name. Had all to do with who she was. And I don't know. I don't know her either. I don't know her from a can of paint. Wasn't there in none of the rooms that she was in. But I feel like maybe part of the problem that she ran into is because of her role in whatever went down. Now, could it have been plagued by them going to jail? Yes. Her business opportunities could have been erased. Yes. Because in the beginning, like I said, they disappointed a lot of people. They disappointed me too. I'm thinking to myself, what? Todd? So I can see that happening. But I feel like now with this rebirth of the Chrisley name, now you want to change it? I think you want to change it because you want to marry this new guy that you're following named David Landsman. And you're trying to say, you're saying you're not married, but maybe you are. Why would you change your name to a last name that ain't yours yet? Just saying. That don't make sense.
after my divorce, I did return to my maiden name, Chrisley, because that's just what I knew to do. Like, it wasn't because it felt necessarily right. It was just truly what was left. It was a name that I was born with, and it did no longer feel like mine. But what am I supposed to do?
Situations, I think it's hard too because you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because if you kept Campbell, it's like, oh, she's still hung up. Whatever the case may be, why would she not change her name? And then you change her name, then you change your name.
You'd leave your name as Campbell because you had a son. And that way your son is Jackson Campbell and you're his mother. Girl, I don't believe her, but let's listen anyway.
Back, people are not happy with that. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. I can speak on my own personal life. Like, I think that that's a personal decision you have to make. My mom asked for her name back when she got divorced before she married my dad. She asked for her name back. I know some people don't. So I think that it just depends on what your personal ties and preference are. But I know with you being raised very traditionally, it's like you get divorced and you get rid of all of the things, including the last name.
And I mean, I know a lot of people who have kept their married last name, now divorced, and have children, and have kept the married last name for the sake of the children. The intentions of me going back to my maiden name was solely because I felt like I needed to have my own identity outside of my marriage. And while I didn't feel like Chrisley was no longer mine, Campbell certainly was no longer mine. And if anything was mine, it was what I was born with.
Right.
And I guess the whole premise behind why I didn't keep Campbell, because it is, I would say, more commonplace for people who have children, for the ex-wife to keep the last name. I know that's very common here in the South. And while I think that's great and works for some, it was just something that I didn't want to do because I felt like I was so young. And there would eventually be someone else. And it just felt a little icky to me to keep that last name, and then my last name would change from my first marriage to a potential second marriage, and something about that just didn't sit right with me. So I had all of my paperwork done that my maiden name would be restored. However, I could use Campbell in the realm of anything involving Jackson. So, like school paperwork, I can be listed as a Campbell. On contact information, sign him out of school under that name. Any of that stuff involving him, we are Will and Lindsie Campbell.
I mean, I think that's a happy medium, right? Like, you use it for those purposes, and then you have your own identity outside of that.
Outside of that, recently, and I'm sure as much as anything that I say, which for the most part I would say 99% of the time is in response to things that have been said. I'm sure things are sent that way, things are sent to me this way, but I was made aware that there were comments that had been publicly made by my dad. One of those was saying, and I quote, "Can't wait to have grandchildren." Um, that statement just completely, in my opinion, ignores my son Jackson, who is his biological grandchild. Um, that type of erasure and emotional harm does not just affect me. And I think that's where others are not understanding, because you have a public platform. There's just certain things that should not be said. It has and will continue to affect Jackson. What was said essentially sends a message to my son that he is not seen, that he is not valued. And that is something that I just will never tolerate.
Well, if Todd said that, we don't know. This is what she's saying. Then no, I don't agree with that. That is his grandson, regardless of whatever the relationship is with her and him. He has Chloe, who was by his oldest son, and they have custody of Chloe because his oldest son financially, I guess, couldn't take care of her, nor her mom. So I think they do have custody of Chloe. I don't know if I remember Jackson being on the show, in the beginning episodes of Chrisley Knows Best. So I don't know if honestly I don't think that Todd would be like that, but you never know. This is what she's saying. That's what she's saying. He said that's unfortunate if that's how he feels, because it's on the strength of her. It really doesn't have anything to do with the child. But that's I don't agree with that. So let's listen some more.
And I know that a lot of people have been so confused because shortly before my parents were sentenced and then sent to prison, there was a very public reconciliation, and it left a lot of you confused, but not just a lot of you, also myself. And that reconciliation, and I've said this before publicly, but I'll say it again, was at play a long time before we ever sat down for those podcast episodes. And from my part and on my behalf, I did that for the sake of my son. I personally felt like he deserves to have a relationship with his family if he chooses that. And I never in any way want to be a roadblock to get in the way of that, regardless of any personal feelings that I have. Um,
And we've had conversations about that because um many times, not even just in that scenario, but you and I share the same belief that the children should never pay for adult mistakes, whether that's in marriage, divorce, relationships, family dynamics, all of the things. The children should never be affected. I speak as one who was affected, and I'm coming to terms with that as a 30-year-old. So, we've had so many conversations about that, and I think that that's really, really sad that it does and has and will impact Jackson.
and I mean, I've said to you privately that there does not have to require there is no requirement to have a relationship with me to love your grandchild.
And I think that that is something I commend you on for that, because there are so many people who don't feel that way. They feel like you have to have a relationship with me and it has to be a certain way in order for me to give you access to my child.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, I know where your heart is and was during the reconciliation period, and it just makes me sad.
Truly, it's never been more clear to me that that reconciliation was not genuine on anyone's behalf but my own. And that is not to throw any kind of shade. That is not to, you're a bad person, I'm a good person, you're a good person, I'm a bad person. That's not to say any of that. But when I signed up to do that, and when we were creating those episodes, I truly wanted to come out on the other side of that and move forward in life together. And I do feel that I was led to believe that that's what we were doing. And that's absolutely not what we were doing. And so I've had to.
Now that's interesting. So she's talking about the reconciliation period. I thought she was saying there was a reconciliation period after they got out of jail. This is while they were on air. Now I do remember that they were on there in the beginning, then she stepped out for a moment, then she went through some things with her ex-husband. Todd invited her back. I guess trying to say, you're still my daughter, and I want a relationship with my grandson Jackson. Blah, blah. And she did come on there for a couple of episodes, but then she left again. So maybe that's the time I think she's referring to, whether she felt like it was genuine or not. Um, I don't know. Never know what people's going through.
To come to terms with a lot of that stuff on my own. And I think it's fair for me to say that my number one priority in this life is to create an emotionally safe environment for Jackson, but also myself, and an environment for my child that is free from any type of conditional love, public erasure, or private pain. I will never let him question his worth or have any questions to wonder why. And I just want everyone listening to this that while a family that has been publicly followed on TV, and now, whatever's currently going on in their lives, that I am completely separate from. It's none of my business. I truly don't care. I wish you well. Making statements that could harm emotionally and mentally a child for the sake of an interview, like I can't get behind that.
What really sucks is Jackson's 12. Okay, so he has access to these things. Yep. And you and I have seen how many times things have been said to Jackson by people at school,
Mm-hmm.
by friends' parents,
Mm-hmm.
anywhere you could think of, teachers. So the fact that he saw that makes me incredibly sad.
Mm-hmm.
As a mom, I can't even imagine. I'm not a parent, but I can only imagine, like, when you just want to protect your child from everything you can protect them from, especially pain and hurt. I can't imagine how that would make you feel, not even speaking to what it does as like a daughter.
Well, and none of this was my child's choice. And so for him to have to navigate a lot of these things that he had no hand in, mentally and emotionally, I absolutely will never stand for that ever.
No, you're
You want
protected.
to live your own life, you want to do your own thing, you want no association. Neither do I, but just move on.
Don't continue to speak and say things that could be incredibly hurtful. And again, for me specifically, I look at it from the child's perspective because I've been there. And it's not fair for him to have to pay for, because at the end of the day, Lindsie, you and I can look each other dead in the face and we both know you have all said your shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Everybody has said their shit.
Yep.
It shouldn't have impact any of the kids involved. I'm not even just talking about Jackson. I'm talking about any of the kids in general.
And I just think, currently, whatever they have going on, like on top of the public statements that have been made, there has also been name calling that has been going on, specific commentary that has been directed at me by a member of, I guess, my family, my public family. Things that have been said privately that that I'm aware of, that maybe others that are doing these actions are not aware that I'm aware of. It's just disheartening. Like, I want nothing bad for you. Like, just move on and away from me.
No, I mean, I would agree. I think that that is the healthiest thing that everybody can do, is to wish each other well and move on.
For the sake of my own mental health and my emotional well-being, it's not something that I can continue to allow into my life. I feel like I have worked truly so hard to have a grounded and peaceful life, and that journey and what that has looked like. And I am just not going, I refuse to allow any type of disrespect or dysfunction to have any type of seat at my table.
100% accurate. I've seen you clean house for sure.
Specifically in regards to choosing to change my last name to Landsman, is not a long and drawn out situation. It truly was a decision that I made about reclaiming my peace and stepping into my future that is defined by love, growth over the past couple of years, and just forward movement. And the big question is David and I married? And we are not married. I feel that it is fair to say that he and I built a safe and loving relationship that allows for stability in my life and in Jackson's life. And in this chapter, that name feels like home to me. It has nothing to do with erasing my past. It is all about choosing my future and protecting the people that I love most while doing so. And it felt like it was the right thing to do. I also wanted to address, was not posted by me, but wanted to address the ring photo that was posted. That absolutely was not an engagement ring. Very much a physical symbol of promise and commitment that we have made to each other.
So he gave you a promise ring at 30. Okay. I guess that's cool. I feel like I wouldn't have changed my name to his last name though. It's like you still don't have an identity of your own. There's nothing wrong with Chrisley. Chrisley is what you make it. Yeah, you're Todd's daughter. But I feel like you get more, I don't know, it's my personal opinion. I feel like she's just distancing herself because they've disowned her, because of the role that she played in that whole scenario of them going to jail. And this is her doing this for her. She's not even considering Jackson. Jackson got his own last name, so he don't need it. But my whole thing is, I don't know. I don't know.
And our blended family. And I just feel like I would absolutely not tell people.
I mean, I know that next week you get a little bit more into this with Kale on Coffee Combos, like next Thursday, but you have said it so many times that like you did it in more of like a not secret way, but more private way before. Like you would want to celebrate that with people. I think it was so funny. Even, I mean, you know, they'll hear it in the episode, but even you had Kale like, what the fuck's going on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And while I'm not opposed to any type of elopement situation in regards to marriage.
Okay, so she's talking about marrying the guy. But why not just wait till you get married and change your name? And then that would have looked a lot better. That would have made more sense. And it wouldn't have looked like you were being deceitful or ornery towards the Chrisleys. Granted, you are Chrisley, but if you had just waited until you got married, because you're already calling him a blended family. Like, I guess he has kids or a kid. You're already calling it a blended family. So, why not wait? Why not wait until you get married and then it's like, oh, well, she got married. That's why she changed her name. Wouldn't look so obvious. Wouldn't look so obvious. Now, I don't know if she's telling the truth about Todd or the family even wanting to be a part of Jackson's life. That doesn't even come. They don't even come across like that. But family can be family, and they could be your worst enemy. So I don't know. I ain't there. I don't know none of them. But at the same token, I don't know. For some reason, I personally don't think that Nanny Faye would go for that, because Nanny Faye and her were tight. Nanny Faye and her were really tight, and those two filmed more so than her with the rest of the family. So if Nanny Faye has anything to do with it, Todd is going to talk to his grandson. And he's 12? Wow, time sure does go by fast. Anyway, tell me what you think. Tell me why you think Lindsie changed her name to Landsman to a man that has not yet married her. Because she says that feels like home. He's given her a promise ring. Just saying. Anywho, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell me what you think. Let's talk about it more in the comments. Everyone be blessed. Peace.